This is a disaster. It's shocking to hear that Giannis Antetokounmpo has shown interest in joining the Chicago Bulls. However, it's even more shocking to hear that the Chicago Bulls aren't interested in making a move for Giannis Antetokounmpo. Hello, my name is Isaias Jackson Jr. Thank you guys so much for tuning into Bulls Digest. We got to get into all the news and notes, and Giannis Antetokounmpo showing interest in inquiring and joining the Chicago Bulls, and the Chicago Bulls saying no, they want to keep their their young core talent, and honestly, I like that. I like that response by the Chicago Bulls. However, 67.5% of you guys are not subscribed. 32.5% of you guys are. And we appreciate you guys on both sides of the field. And look, I'm telling you, I'm going to the Chicago Bulls Indiana Pacers game. And as an Indiana Pacers hater, I got to make my way there. We're going to have a whole lot of fun. And, you know, depending on the outcome, we're either going to have a happy video in the next couple days, or you're going to see a man run rampant through the streets of Chicago, just throwing a mad temper tantrum. So if you don't want me to absolutely lose my mind, or if you want the recap on how I lost my mind, hit that subscribe button, like and share, and thank you guys so much for tuning into Bulls Digest. New reports says the Chicago Bulls had shocking response to Giannis Antetokounmpo's trade interest, and of course we've seen and heard Giannis grow increasingly frustrated with the Milwaukee Bucks, and of course the direction that they're at is now the fall from grace. Definitely haven't been pretty at all for the Milwaukee Bucks. You've seen them become NBA champions, and of course the decline was pretty swift. The decline was pretty swift. It wasn't as swift as, now I know they didn't win, but it wasn't as swift as the Indiana Pacers, where you make it to the finals, unfortunately you lose, and then of course Tyrese Halliburton went down, you lose Miles Turner to the Milwaukee Bucks, things of that nature. Milwaukee Bucks didn't have that far of a decline, but it has been really, really rough to see Giannis Antetokounmpo just barely scratching the surface of what he did in that finals run, in that NBA finals win, to him pretty much struggling to get back into the NBA finals as it's been all said and done. So just moving forward, the Chicago Bulls turned Giannis Antetokounmpo away. At least this is what a new report is telling fans to believe. During Tuesday's Chicago Sports Tonight on Fox 32 Chicago, longtime local sports reporter Lou Canellis shared a shocking update. As the Milwaukee Bucks and Giannis Antetokounmpo weigh whether or not to pursue a trade, Canellis reported that the superstar big man expressed previous interest in joining the Chicago Bulls. In fact, Canellis even stated that Antetokounmpo's camp reached out to the franchise about making a possible trade happen. The Bulls' alleged response is stunning. And just getting into the quote here, I can tell you that Giannis and their representatives reached out to the Chicago Bulls about a potential deal, but the Bulls said they were not interested. Canellis said on Fox 32 Chicago, they were not interested in breaking up their young core or changing the course of the direction that they have laid out with AK and Mark Eversley right now. Maybe things have changed with the latest report from ESPN about maybe the Bulls kicking the tires on Anthony Davis. I can tell you this for a fact. A few months ago, Giannis wanted to be traded. And yeah, that doesn't shock me at all. You know, and granted, the Milwaukee Bucks are still trying to do what they can to still build talent around them. But after, of course, the decline of Chris Middleton, you know, you weren't seeing the Chris Middleton of old. And, of course, him making his way out of Milwaukee. You see somebody like Kyle Kuzma come in. You're seeing Miles Turner come in, Cole Anthony. You know, the Milwaukee Bucks are trying to make the right moves. However, it's just not coming to fruition, and you're not seeing a great amount of success coming from the Milwaukee Bucks at all. And Giannis Antetokounmpo, even with the talent there, still looks like a one-man wrecking ball. You know, it still looks like he's doing it by himself out there. On the defensive side, no. You know, I feel like help is coming from all around. On the offensively, it's looking like it's all Giannis in more ways than one, which is still a gut punch, and I can understand the frustration in Giannis there right there. So that's right. Canellis insists that the Bulls front office shut down interest from one of the best players in the NBA. AK reportedly preferred to stay the course of his young and developing roster, which is now 3-11 in his last 14 games and sitting 9-12 in the Eastern Conference. Now, here's the thing, though. Here's the thing. You trade Giannis, you give up the likes of the Kobe Whites of the world, Ayo Dosunmu, you know, you give up Javon Carter, you give up your picks, you give up Patrick Williams. You pretty much unload the roster for Giannis Antetokounmpo. What is going to be the surrounding talent of this man? You know, I would 100% love Giannis Antetokounmpo being on the Chicago Bulls if they were able to keep Josh Giddey and Kobe White. And I definitely think it's just going to be keeping Kobe White, having Giannis Antetokounmpo, and everybody else just getting the hell on, getting up out of there, which I think is a gut punch. I do think it wouldn't be the right move for the Chicago Bulls because Giannis would be in the same position that he's in Milwaukee. You know, pretty much having a franchise build around him. And if we're believing AK, you know, if we're believing Torres Conasovis, you know, have you guys had any faith in him building this young core from where it is now? You know, we've seen him struggle with building the team with Zach LaVine, DeMar DeRozan, and of course Lonzo Ball. That team pretty much just got blown up with the quickness, and now we have this young core that we have, and it was fun in the beginning, but still, there's still some growing pains that need to be had with this team. And unloading them and bringing Giannis in, you're putting Giannis in the same exact position, waiting for the team to build around him until we find some great success. And that's not guaranteed, as you see for the Milwaukee Bucks. You know, got the one successful season underneath their belt. And after that, not a whole lot has been going on for them in terms of repeating said success. And so even on top of that, getting into and I always bring this up when talking about bringing a superstar into the Chicago Bulls organization. I always go to my Phoenix Suns stories because I'll never forget covering the Phoenix Suns and seeing the report that Kevin Durant was traded to the Phoenix Suns in exchange for some picks. It was Mikal Bridges and Cam Johnson, the twins. And I thought that was just so stupid of the Phoenix Suns. And every time I was on air at Phoenix, everybody wanted to tell me how stupid I was. Izzy, this makes no sense. You're just upset about this because you're negative about everything. When in actuality, you went to the finals with this young core and Chris Paul. Chris Paul was there. You know, you went to the finals with this young core and Chris Paul. You lost to the Milwaukee Bucks. And now, I feel like that move itself was just so drastic and you put your team back. Because now you got old head Kevin Durant on the team. And old head Kevin Durant, of course, he was unhappy in more ways than one. He couldn't even get to the first game without twisting his ankle and then being out for that remainder of the season until they got to the playoffs. And so when you're looking at that whole situation that the Phoenix Suns put them through, I talked about how this would set their franchise back. And it looks like it did. Now they're looking at Dillon Brooks in the eyes. You know, when they did have the likes of a Mikal Bridges, who's flourishing out there in New York, Cam Johnson, who's doing really, really well in Denver. You know, so and on a flip side of that, and of course they lost Chris Paul, but I felt like they still had the talent there with Mikal Bridges defensively and offensively, and Cam Johnson as well, to still make a move, to still keep it consistent and not go on a huge decline like they did as soon as they had Kevin Durant on the team. And so now look at the Phoenix Suns. I don't want to be where the Phoenix Suns are at right now. I don't want to have a superstar for a couple of years and then have said superstar either want to leave or realize that this isn't working and the franchise has to boot him out of there. And now we're dealing with the same situation that we have to go through. We just pretty much blew up our team for no reason, you know, in more ways than one. That's pretty much my biggest fear. The last thing I want to do is trade the young core, is trade young talent off of the roster, bring in Giannis Antetokounmpo, who honestly a superstar. You know, yes, sometimes sacrifices have to be made to make a power move like that, and that's what the Phoenix Suns situation was. That's what all the talking points were. Look, if Kevin Durant is on the table, you make that move. It doesn't matter what it is. It doesn't matter. Well, you got to take that chance. You were in the finals before. If this is your chance to get into the finals again, you make the move for Kevin Durant. The Chicago Bulls, there is no finals aspirations. There is no finals aspirations at all. We're looking into the future. You know, we're looking into the future, and what we have in this team is a young core that can help us out long term. Kobe White, long term. Josh Giddey, long term. Ayo Dosunmu, long term. You know, Trey Jones can be long term, even though, you know, he's going to be flourishing on the bench, and then when Josh Giddey gets injured, he'll come through and make his way through. Or Kobe White, when Kobe White's injured as well. We'll see Trey Jones, too, in the starting lineup here and there. But, you know, you're seeing guys on this team. There's a young core on this team, young talent on this team. And I think also as well, You can trade up for some draft picks as well. You can trade up and you can put this towards draft stock as well instead of going for Giannis Antetokounmpo, who I don't necessarily think he will have the grandiosest time in Chicago in more ways than one when it's all said and done. As I said, it'll just be Milwaukee 2.0. You'll go through, have an amazing run, of course. Put up your 30, 20, and 6. Put up your 30 points, 20 rebounds, 6 assists, of course, being facetious. But, and on the flip side of that, you and Josh Giddey are going to be neck and neck. You and Josh Giddey are going to be the 1-2 punch. But after it's all said and done, there's not going to be a grand amount of talent on this team that's going to push the Chicago Bulls over that hump. And I think the Chicago Bulls are right on this one. Keep your core, keep your young core. See what your young core can do over it. Now, I get it. This is the start of the season. Going 3 of 11 is still a gut punch, especially with how you started the season. But still, I want to rock with this young core. I want to see what this young core has in store. As we talked about in a numerous amount of my videos, the Chicago Bulls, in terms of having talent long term, we haven't seen that in a while, since probably Derrick Rose. And even then, Derrick Rose was traded, when it was all said and done. They tried it with Jimmy Butler. Jimmy Butler wanted to get out of there. They let him go. They tried it with Zach LaVine, even though they traded Zach LaVine onto the team. They tried to make him the go-to guy. It didn't work at all. So now you have Kobe White drafted from the Chicago Bulls themselves. And now he is pretty much the guy who's been here long term, who the Chicago Bulls are putting their stock in, of course. But now, with his contract being up, we don't even know if he's going to be wearing a Chicago Bulls uniform come next season. And honestly, and this is going to be stupid. This is going to be stupid. I know, you clip this, talk about me. If this is going to make you guys leave, it is what it is. I'd rather have Josh Giddey and Kobe White and keep the duo together than get rid of one, bring in Giannis, and try to work and structure the roster how we see fit. Because I feel like that's a bigger gamble than sticking with your core talent, than sticking with your young core. And I don't mean to be rambling here, but there's so much that can go wrong with a Giannis Antetokounmpo trade. With a team that's already, established, that, is working their way up, but there's some dynamic dudes on the team, like the Orlando Magic, who we've seen the talent being put on full display. The Orlando Magic are going to make a move like that, then sure. That is a move that's definitely going to put you over the hump. Or like the Houston Rockets just did, and bringing in Kevin Durant. That's a move that's going to put you over the hump, because you have not only star talent, but you have a young core that can still put you over the hump. Chicago Bulls, you bring in Giannis Antetokounmpo, I don't think that's happening. I don't think it's going to be a huge shift in what the Chicago Bulls are going to put on the court for us. Did the Chicago Bulls really turn Giannis Antetokounmpo away? If this report from Luke Canellis is accurate, Adam Silver might have grounds for removing the franchise entirely from the NBA. In all seriousness, if Giannis Antetokounmpo comes calling, you listen. Every organization in the league hopes that it receives such a phone call from the Greek Freaks representatives, which is why the news feels so incredibly hard to believe. And that's the thing. Yes, Giannis Antetokounmpo a superstar calls, you make that move. Okay, fine. You listen, but that doesn't mean you go through with it. You can get a call from Giannis, you can get a call from KD. You can even get a call from LeBron James himself. You listen. But if it's asking you to put your franchise back 3 or 4 years and then recoup after the third season, after the second season, because even though Giannis is a great generational talent, I do think with the Chicago Bulls team, you're not going to make an immediate impact that's going to put them into playoff contention. The Milwaukee Bucks don't even have a winning record right now with superstar Giannis Antetokounmpo on the team. And so, trading away your young core, bringing in Giannis, and of course Giannis is going to have his recommendations on guys to bring in, who he wants in that can fit with him and what he and his game as well. But it's still a gamble. It's still a huge gamble that I think the Chicago Bulls aren't in a position to make. But that's just me. Like I said, drop your comments in the comment section below if I'm just absolutely tweaking, which I don't, but I would like to be told that I'm tweaking. Please let me know. Now, Canellis does go on to suggest that this interest from Antetokounmpo came well before the latest drama in Milwaukee. While he does not say precisely when he received this information, he does say that the events happened a few months ago, which would have put us in the NBA offseason. We did learn around that time that Antetokounmpo reportedly expressed interest in joining the Knicks, so he apparently was reviewing alternate options. Still, we heard nothing about him having eyes for the Bulls at the time. Now, if we would have heard this in the offseason, and of course, how the Chicago Bulls are moving in the offseason as well, definitely scared you a little bit, of course, with the whole Josh Giddey situation. Josh Giddey taking a while to put, or the Chicago Bulls and Josh Giddey taking a while to put pen to paper and signing that 4-year, what it is now $100 million deal, to sign with the Chicago Bulls. The offseason was a little rough, and we were dealing with every type of rumor, known to man. Even still dealing with the Anthony Davis situation as well, dealing with Giannis Antetokounmpo and every other type of deal. We even talked about bringing Derek Queen in draft, Noa Essengue, bringing in Noa Essengue, him getting dunked on, and then also putting up 20-game performances in the summer league. Like this Bulls team can be fun. This young core can be and will be fun. I don't want to lose Montes Buzelis. I don't want to lose Kobe White. I don't want to lose these guys at all. Excuse me, just for the slivering hope of bringing in Giannis Antetokounmpo and him potentially turning the franchise around with the quickness. Like I said, if there was a crazy amount of talent, the young talent that is showing out like the Orlando Magic, that is showing out like at an extreme case, like the Oklahoma City Thunder, that can afford to make that move and get instant success, I could believe that. I just don't think that's the case for Chicago. Do you think that Giannis Antetokounmpo can grant immediate success for the Chicago Bulls? That is something I just don't believe. I'm not sold on it one bit. And just jumping right into it, regardless, the idea that his people would directly reach out to his current version of the Chicago Bulls about a move is still shocking, and the alleged response from the Bulls is dumbfounding, befuddled, moronic, and insert whichever word you prefer here. And I am each and every one of those words that he put right there. Even if the Bulls did opt for a more long-term approach at last year's trade deadline, Antetokounmpo is the kind of superstar player you completely change your philosophy for. If a 30-year-old, two-time MVP, Defensive Player of the Year, and Finals MVP wants to wear your jersey, you do everything you can to make it happen. But what if you take your team for the next 3 or 4 years and you're back in the same position? The Chicago Bulls are sick of talking about being in the play-in in the 9th seed for 3 or 4 years, but yeah, Giannis Antetokounmpo comes in, there's no immediate success for the team, and now for the next 3 or 4 years, we're in the 9th seed or 10th seed. The only difference is we just got a superstar on the team. So it's like, what are we doing here? What are we literally doing here? In more ways than one. So do I honestly believe that this is how things went down? Not really. I have a hard time thinking that any executive would be foolish enough to do something like this. Even the Bulls' leading man. Have a conversation with the Bucks only for a deal to fall through, that's one thing. Refuse to even engage, that would be a cardinal sin. Now, I will say that refusing to engage is insane. I do think you still need to go out there and have a conversation with the Chicago Bulls. My whole ideology, my whole thing is I don't want to lose my core. I don't want to lose my young core. I still want to maintain some talent on this team. And if I can still do that while grabbing somebody like a Giannis Antetokounmpo, of course, yes, go for it. That's a move you make. But dumping your entire roster to the Milwaukee Bucks just for the slivering hope that you can get Giannis Antetokounmpo, and then seeing Giannis Antetokounmpo, Josh Giddey, and then returning Denzel Valentine, come through and try to play for the Chicago Bulls. It's just not... It's not sufficient. It's not sufficient at all. If we learn anything from the Phoenix Suns, you don't want to tank your franchise. And by tanking your franchise, I mean you don't want to pretty much lose a whole lot of talent just for the slivering hope that you can bring in a superstar, and that superstar just comes through and wets the bed for your team. Now, just looking at Giannis' stats, of course, coming up on 30 points per game, 10 rebounds, 6 assists, shooting 63% from the field, 43% from three-point range. Just an absolute dog. But this is a dog that you would love to have on your team, but not if you have to dump away your whole young core. But what do you think? How crazy was this video? Was I just talking absolute gibberish to you guys? Do you guys think that there's no way the Chicago Bulls should say no and bringing in Giannis Antetokounmpo? If Giannis makes the call, you dump everybody off of your roster to bring in a Giannis Antetokounmpo? Or are you like me? Are you more reserved? Do you want to keep your young core, see what your young core does, and also just move forward with what we have instead of just getting rid of everybody, bringing in Giannis Antetokounmpo, and if it becomes a failed project, your franchise is done for. You're stuck in the same predicament that you were once in. Instead of keeping the young core and seeing what the young core could do, and now instead they're all scattered, around the NBA doing the great work that we've seen them do in the Chicago Bulls uniform. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Please go easy on me on the comments. Please go easy on me. All jokes aside, having a whole lot of fun. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. I'll see you guys next time.